All right, degenerates, strap in. We're going deep on the Paris Agreement today.
That's right.
Supposedly, this thing's going to save our asses from turning the planet into, I don't know, a fucking easy bake oven.
Yeah.
But what the fuck is it really all about? We've got a badass climate expert here to break it down.
Happy to be here.
Let's get this shit show on the road.
Okay, so the Paris Agreement, it's basically like a global contract.
Oh, a contract.
Yeah, like almost every country on Earth.
Seriously?
Yeah, 195 out of 197, they all got together and said, hey, let's try not to completely fuck up the planet, all right?
Wow, they all actually agreed on something.
It's kind of a big deal.
All right, so it's like a global pinky promise,
Yeah.
you know, to not turn Earth into a Mad Max wasteland.
Yeah.
How does this thing actually work?
So the agreement focuses on three main things.
Okay, hit me.
Mitigation, adaptation, and finance.
Sure.
Mitigation means cutting those nasty greenhouse gas emissions, you know, the shit that's cooking the planet.
Gotcha.
Adaptation is figuring out how to deal with the shitstorm that's already brewing because, let's face it, we've already screwed things up pretty badly.
Yeah, no shit.
And finance, well, that's the fun part, figuring out who's going to pay for all this eco-friendly fun.
Oh, yeah, the money.
Yeah.
Always a good time. So it's like cut the pollution, prep for the apocalypse, and then fight over the bill. Sounds about right for humans.
Pretty much.
Well, wait a minute. Didn't the U.S. bail on this whole thing at some point?
They did. Yeah, under Trump, the U.S. was like, screw this, we're out.
What an asshole.
That was a dick move.
Yeah,
But then they crawled back under Biden. So yeah, they're back in the climate club for now.
the drama. It's like a reality TV show with these politicians. But all right, enough of the history lesson. What are the actual goals? Are we all going to be driving solar-powered cars and living in tree houses or something?
Well, not quite.
Yeah.
The Paris Agreement lays out specific temperature goals.
Okay, so what are we talking?
They're trying to keep the planet from warming up more than 2 degrees Celsius.
2 degrees? That doesn't sound like much.
And ideally, just 1.5 degrees compared to, pre-industrial levels.
Okay.
But trust me, 2 degrees is a bigger deal than you think.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We're talking about widespread droughts, rising sea levels, and more extreme weather events like superstorms, killer heat waves. We're going to see a whole lot of displaced people. It's not going to be pretty.
So you're saying shit's about to get real?
Real fucked up.
Okay. All right, I get it. So how are we doing on those goals? Are we all going to be living off the grid and, wearing hemp clothes or something?
Not even close. Even with all the promises countries have made, we're still on track to blow past those targets.
It's like trying to put out a forest fire with a squirt gun, huh?
Pretty much.
Fuck.
Hmm.
That's not good.
Nope.
So how the hell are these countries supposed to meet these goals? Is there like some sort of eco-police enforcing this shit?
Not quite. Each country has to come up with its own plan.
Their own plan, all right.
It's called a Nationally Determined Contribution. NDC for short. It's basically their plan on how they're going to reduce emissions.
Wait, so they get to choose their own goals?
Pretty much.
That's like letting a student grade their own homework.
It's a voluntary system.
Voluntary.
Which means no one can force them to set ambitious targets or hold them accountable if they fall short.
Sounds like a bunch of bullshit.
It can be.
What's to stop countries from setting some easy-ass goals and then, just jerking themselves off for doing the bare minimum?
That's where things get interesting. There's this thing called Article 6.
Okay, Article 6.
This is designed to incentivize more ambitious action. It's all about creating a global carbon market.
A carbon market? What, like a stock market, but for pollution?
Exactly. Countries that are good at cutting emissions, they can trade their extra reductions to countries that are struggling to meet their targets.
So it's like a reward system for being eco-friendly.
You could say that.
Yeah.
The idea is to incentivize everyone to reduce emissions more cost-effectively.
Interesting. So the good guys get rewarded, and the polluters have to pay up. Sounds fair. But doesn't this just let rich countries off the hook? They can just buy their way out of making real changes.
That's one of the big concerns, yeah. If this carbon market isn't carefully designed and regulated, it could easily become a giant loophole for polluters.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
We need to make sure it's not just a way for countries to buy their way out of actually cutting emissions.
All right, so how do we make sure this whole carbon market thing doesn't turn into some kind of, eco-scam?
Transparency and accountability are key.
Okay.
You need robust accounting systems to track emission reductions, strict regulations to prevent fraud, independent oversight, to make sure everyone is playing by the rules. It's a tricky balance.
Yeah, sounds like a bureaucratic nightmare, but I guess it's better than, letting the planet burn.
I'd say so.
But Okay, let's say for argument's sake that this carbon market thing actually works. Are we home free then?
Not quite.
Can we all go back to guzzling gas and, living our wasteful lives?
Not so fast. Even if we manage to curb emissions, there's still the whole issue of adaptation. We've already pumped so much crap into the atmosphere that some level of climate change is unavoidable.
Right, right. It's like trying to unspill milk. You can wipe it up, but there's still going to be a stain. So how does the Paris Agreement deal with that mess?
Adaptation is all about preparing for the unavoidable impacts of climate change.
Okay.
Building resilience.
Resilience in what?
Our infrastructure, our economies, and our communities.
So like building seawalls and developing drought-resistant crops, basically prepping for the climate apocalypse.
You got it.
Sounds expensive.
It is. And that brings us back to the third pillar of the agreement, finance.
Right. Show me the money.
Richer countries are supposed to help developing countries pay for all this climate action, both mitigation and adaptation.
Okay, so the rich countries who created this mess are supposed to help clean it up.
In theory, yes.
Noble of them. But let's be real. Are they actually coughing up the cash?
The agreement set a goal of $100 billion per year in climate finance.
By when?
By 2020.
Man.
Surprise, surprise, they're not even close.
Figures?
Climate finance is a constant source of tension and debate.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be an international agreement without some financial fuckery.
Yeah.
But let's get down to brass tacks here.
Okay.
Is this whole Paris Agreement thing actually going to work?
That's the million-dollar question.
Or is it just some feel-good circle jerk, for diplomats?
It's a complex beast, this agreement.
Right.
It's got potential, but it also has a shitload of challenges.
So you're saying it's a total crapshoot. We're all fucked anyway.
Not necessarily. It's more nuanced than that. The agreement has some genuinely innovative mechanisms,
Okay.
like this Article 6 thing we touched on earlier.
Article 6.
This carbon market thing could really be a game changer if it's done right.
Okay, so remind me, what is this carbon market thing again?
So basically, it's a system where countries can buy and sell emissions credits. Think of it like trading cards, but for pollution.
Okay.
Countries that are exceeding their emissions reduction targets, they can sell those extra credits to the countries that are lagging behind.
So the eco-friendly countries get rewarded, and the polluters have to pay up.
Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to incentivize everyone to step up their game and reduce emissions, and it should make it more cost effective for everybody.
Sounds fair. But isn't this just going to let the rich countries off the hook?
It's a valid concern.
They could just buy their way out of, actually making any real changes.
Yeah, if this carbon market isn't carefully designed and regulated, it could easily become a giant loophole for polluters.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening.
We need to make sure it's not just a way for countries to buy their way out of actually reducing emissions.
All right, so how do we make sure this carbon market thing doesn't turn into some kind of, giant eco scam?
Transparency and accountability, those are key.
Of course, got to have that.
Robust accounting systems.
Mm-hmm.
That's to track emissions reductions, right?
They got to track that shit.
Strict regulations, and those are to prevent fraud. And, of course, independent oversight.
Okay.
To make sure everyone is playing by the rules.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah, it sounds like a bureaucratic nightmare, but I guess it's better than, letting the planet burn.
I'd say so, yeah.
So, okay, let's just say this carbon market thing actually works. Are we home free then? Can we all go back to, driving our gas guzzlers and living our wasteful consumerist lifestyles?
Not quite. Even if we manage to curb emissions, there's still the whole issue of adaptation. We've already pumped so much shit into the atmosphere that some level of climate change is unavoidable at this point.
Right? Like we talked about before. It's like that milk that's already spilled. You can wipe it up, but there's still going to be a stain. So what's the plan for dealing with that mess? What can we even do?
Well, adaptation is all about preparing for those unavoidable impacts of climate change.
Okay.
It's about building resilience.
Resilience in what exactly?
In everything. Our infrastructure, our economies, even our communities.
So, we're talking about things like building seawalls, developing drought-resistant crops, that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Basically, prepping for the climate apocalypse.
I mean, you could put it that way.
Sounds expensive.
Oh, it is. And that brings us back to that third pillar of the agreement.
Right. The money.
Finance.
Always comes back to that, doesn't it?
It always does. The agreement talks about providing financial support to developing countries
Okay.
to help them pay for all these adaptation measures.
Right, but those are the ones that are going to be hit the hardest, right?
Yeah, often, yeah. But, as we discussed earlier, climate finance is, it's always a point of contention.
Well, yeah, because those developed countries, they don't always like to cough up the dough.
No, they don't.
Sounds like the same old story. Rich countries making promises they don't keep. But let's not dwell on the depressing shit.
Okay.
Is there anything in this agreement that gives you, I don't know, a glimmer of hope?
There are a few things, yeah. One of the most promising aspects of the Paris Agreement is its focus on transparency and accountability.
Okay.
It establishes a framework, you see,
A framework for what?
for monitoring, reporting, and verifying each country's climate actions.
Hold on, so you're telling me we're just relying on these countries to honestly report their own progress? Isn't that like asking a fox to guard the henhouse?
There's always that risk, sure, Countries might try to fudge the numbers.
Of course they will.
But the transparency framework also includes mechanisms for review and accountability. So independent experts in other countries can scrutinize the data
Okay.
and, call out any inconsistencies.
So it's like peer review, but for saving the planet.
Pretty much. The hope is that all this transparency will encourage countries to actually be more ambitious.
Okay.
And to follow through on their commitments. After all, nobody wants to be shamed on the world stage for being a climate slacker.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so we've got these ambitious goals. We've got a system for, incentivizing emissions reductions. We've got a plan for dealing with the inevitable impacts.
Yeah.
And we've got a way to track everyone's progress. But the big question remains, is it actually working?
It's still too early to say for sure. I mean, the Paris Agreement, it's a long-term game.
Right.
But there are some promising signs.
Like what?
Well, renewable energy's booming.
That's true.
Electric vehicles they're gaining traction.
Yeah, they are.
And, even businesses, they're starting to take climate change more seriously these days.
Yeah, they kind of have to at this point. So there's hope.
There's always hope. But we can't get complacent. The window for action is closing, and the consequences of inaction, well, they're becoming increasingly dire.
Deep. So we can't just sit back and, and wait for someone else to fix this shit.
That's right.
We all have to actually, do something.
We do. The future of the planet is in our hands. The choices we make today are going to determine the world we leave for future generations.
Damn. All right, well, that's some heavy shit to think about. We've covered a lot of ground today, from carbon markets to electric vehicles to that whole existential crisis of overconsumption.
We have. It's been a wild ride.
It has. And to our listeners, we say this: stay informed, stay engaged, and don't be a dick to the planet. We're all in this shit show together. That's it for this episode of the Deep Dive. Until next time. Stay curious and stay pissed off. Peace out, motherfuckers. Okay, so we've talked a lot about this Paris Agreement, but what does it actually mean for, the average Joe Schmo listening out there?
Well, it's not just some document signed by a bunch of politicians,
So it affects me.
It's shaping the world around us, whether we realize it or not.
Okay, so how? How is this eco-treaty affecting my daily life? Do I need to start, hugging trees and shit?
You don't have to go full-on hippie, but the agreement's pushing for changes in a lot of things, like the energy you use, even the products you buy.
Okay, break it down for me.
Well, take energy, for example.
All right.
The Paris Agreement has really pushed for this move towards renewable energy sources, solar, wind, all that.
So you're saying my electricity might actually be coming from cleaner sources?
It's possible. And as technology gets better and cheaper, we're going to see even more of these renewable energy options.
So my electricity bill might actually be helping to save the planet.
Nice. What about my car, though? I'm not ready to trade in my gas guzzler just yet.
Well, transportation is a big contributor to emissions, right? The Paris Agreement's really pushing for this shift to electric vehicles.
Yeah, I've seen those electric cars. Not bad.
We're seeing a lot more of them, and car companies are really investing in electric models now.
Maybe I'll make the switch sooner than I thought. But what about all the other stuff I buy? Clothes, gadgets, all that crap.
The Paris Agreement's also pushing for more sustainable consumption and production. Basically, they want businesses to reduce their environmental footprint, and people are starting to care more about the impact of the stuff they buy.
So you're saying my addiction to new gadgets is part of the problem. Let's just say overconsumption doesn't exactly help the planet. The agreement's trying to shift us towards a more circular economy, products designed to last longer, be recycled, that kind of thing. It's all about reducing waste.
Okay, so this Paris Agreement thing is about more than just some countries making promises. It's about all of us making changes.
Exactly. It's about changing our behavior, making better choices.
But is it enough? Are we actually going to be able to, I don't know, turn this whole climate shit show around?
That's the big question. Honestly, no one knows for sure. It's a step in the right direction. It's not a magic solution, though. It gives us a framework, but it's up to all of us, governments, businesses, everyone, to actually make it work.
So we can't just sit back and wait for the politicians to save us. We have to actually do something ourselves.
Right. The future of the planet really is in our hands. The choices we make today, they're going to impact the world that we leave for future generations.
Well, that's some deep shit to think about. We've covered a lot today, from carbon markets to electric vehicles to the whole consumerism thing.
It's been a wild ride.
It really has. And to our listeners, we'll say this. Stay informed, stay engaged, and don't be a dick to the planet. We're all in this together. That's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. Until next time, stay curious and stay pissed off. Peace out, motherfuckers.